Hey guys, welcome back to Horse Two Cinema. So I am doing my annual end of the year kind of best films of the year list. I know I've done this in video format in the past couple years, but I don't this year just with traveling back for school and everything, and just being really busy and kind of end of 2023, beginning of 2024. I've just kind of been it's been harder to like commit to like an edit and everything. So I just figured it'd be easier and honestly more fun to just kind of do a live stream kind of format. So yeah, really cool to be doing this. And we have we have a comment here from Brady. We were talking in group chat, and he didn't think I'd go live. He didn't think I'd do it, but here I am. And I really appreciate you coming by, Brady. Yeah, thanks so much. So what I've got for you guys this year is I asked my fiance if this is a little bit too like, I don't know, formal and like nerdy of me. I don't know, but what I decided to do was make a PowerPoint slide for this because I wanted some kind of visual aid for like if I'm not just going to edit the video myself. And I figured after going through a few different ideas, I figured this would be a fun way to do it, and it's pretty simple. So let me just pull this up real quick, and then I will share the screen. Hold on one second. Leon also asks, Leon isn't here to bully me. Have you had the chance to see the holdovers yet? I will get to that. That is mentioned in my like slides. I will say I will answer that question here in a second. And we also have Playing Down Under saying g'day, the most Australian response possible. How's it going, man? G'day. Yeah, really appreciate you coming by. Thanks so much. But yeah, sharing the screen here in a second. And yeah, so just let me know if you guys can see this okay. But yeah, so here we go. So this is Best Films 2023. So I'm going to start off with some notable kind of blind spots of mine in terms of like films that I really think could have made the list, but I have not gotten a chance to see them yet. This happens every year. I'm sure everybody has this kind of thing in their top 10 or whatever. So some great films that I didn't get to see that I think I would have had a really good chance of making the list are Blackberry, directed by Matt Johnson. Thanksgiving, directed by Eli Roth. Return to Seoul. I'm sorry, I forget the director on this. We also have Dream Scenario. Maybe I'll just skip the directors for the most part if I'm forgetting. Ferrari, Juwan, The Holdovers, as Brady was mentioning. Sounds like a really good film. I know my good buddy Leon is like the one person in the world I know that hates this movie. So I'm very curious to watch it and see what I think for myself. And then lastly, Anatomy of a Fall, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. So I think all those sound like great movies. I just did not get a chance to see them, so they will not be on my list. Real quick before I get to the rest of my list here, I'm actually just going to stop sharing just so I can double check to make sure that this is all working. Yeah, and then also just want to take a look at comments because for some reason it's weird to like it won't let me see both or anything. Just let me know if the slides were working, and then we can go on from there. But Brady says no. No worries. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Jackson, hey, how's it going, Mike? Really appreciate you coming on. And Z-Man, some cool chatter between Jackson and Jackson. What am I talking about? Mike and Playing Down Under. Brady says, once I'm out of my apartment away from COVID, I'm seeing Ferrari and the Iron Claw. Really cool. Yeah, maybe I should put the Iron Claw in there too, because I have heard really good things about that, but that would have been a good shout. Broccoli Boy, my favorite veggie too. Mike says, I'm calling Jackson's number one, Exorcist Believer. Yeah, okay, so I don't know if I'm going to do a worst of the year this year. I had a lot of fun doing it last year, and it got a lot of views, but I was like I just felt a little like unmotivated. I don't love talking about movies I hate as much as I love talking about movies I'm a big fan of. So um, yeah, no, I don't know if I'll do it, but spoiler alert, Exorcist Believer might be fairly high on the list. And Mike says you have to do it. um, I know it's not as much of a tradition on my channel as Best of the Year is, because I only did it last year, Worst of the Year anyway. But it is fun. I don't know. Maybe I will do it. Maybe I'll do another stream or something. Mike said it's only fair to call out good and bad movies. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I haven't seen as many of the bad movies as like I don't see everything, and I don't go out of my way to see stuff that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like most of the time. So maybe I don't know. There are definitely enough though that I've seen that I could make a list, so I might do it. But yeah, I just want to make sure. So the slideshow was working a second ago, right, guys? I'm just going to go back to it and yeah. So hold on. Your screen. All right. So those are my notable blind spots. I'll start. And then another section I do, at least I'm doing this year, because I got to see some stuff at film festivals. And at these festivals, 2 of the films I saw got released this year, and I will be talking about them on this list. And then another 2 films that I saw I really liked, but I did not get a chance to see because they they haven't been released, so I haven't rewatched them again on digital. And I'm pretty sure none of you guys will have seen these unless you were also at this festival. So one of those was The Settlers, which is I believe either a Chilean or an Argentinian film. It's this really like kind of bleak revisionist Western that had a lot of really good style to it that I would love to talk about next year. And then the other is this really kind of esoteric light show of an art film called Samsara, which is by director Luis Patino, I think his name is. I would say it's kind of like, I don't know, from what I've heard, it's kind of a mix of like a Pitchapong, like the slow cinema Thai filmmaker, like kind of his style, mixed with like sort of the premise of Gaspar Noé's Enter the Void, just with less like crime elements. It's really crazy. It has one sequence in the middle of it that is like one of the most unique things I've seen in film all year. And yeah, I would highly recommend it. It's just not available anywhere yet, as far as I know. So it'll be a next year release. All right, so I'm going to kick this off before we get into the top 10. I've got a bunch of honorable mentions just because there were so many films I saw this year that I really enjoyed. And so I just want to talk about quite a few of those. I'll be briefer on these, especially with the ones I've already reviewed, and then we can get to the list. So the first one, I did review this film. It's a pretty small independent horror film called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, directed by Bomani J. Story, I believe. And yeah, it's just pretty solid little kind of riff on Frankenstein that incorporates a lot of elements of systemic racism and family loss and grief and all that. And it's pretty gory. It's got a lot of really cool like practical effects to it. And yeah, even though it's a little kind of obvious in its themes a lot of the time, and it's, you can kind of tell it's an early feature from a director, it's still got quite a bit of craft. And I thought the genre riff of it, or like the genre kind of bend to it, was pretty cool. So I believe this is on Shudder if anybody hasn't heard of it or, is interested in checking it out. Another one I really liked was No Hard Feelings, which is the new kind of like summer awkward rom-com starring Jennifer Lawrence. And yeah, no, just really kind of refreshing take on the rom-com. I think I did review this when it came out, at least kind of a catch-up review. Yeah, it's just a good time. There's lots of really goofy gags in it, and it's good summer popcorn fun. This one, I have a little double feature here because it's kind of crazy that these 2 movies came out in the same year because they're so incredibly similar. But one of them is Sisu, which is this Finnish like Nazi exploitation kind of John Wick sort of thing. And then the other one is Blood and Gold, which is also a Nazi exploitation kind of action movie. less in the like bombastic John Wick style and more just like a pretty well done digital action movie that has a lot of really good kind of jujitsu martial arts craft to it. And that one's just on Netflix, so it's very easy to watch. Yeah, I thought both of these were pretty well done action films. I'm gonna see. I will go ahead and get to a couple of more comments. Let's see. Brady says, I don't actually know a lot about the Von Erlich wrestling family, but I do know how horrifically tragic their lives were. Oh yeah, sorry, I missed this comment earlier. We're talking about the Iron Claw, which is I think what that movie is about. Yeah. No, I'm maybe that's why I haven't checked it out, because I'm not as into wrestling, but it does sound like a really good movie, and I like a lot of movies about wrestling, like The Wrestler, of course. So yeah. So it's funny, I saw that on the worst of the year list. I don't know which film you're talking about actually, but oh, No Hard Feelings. There you go. I don't see why it would be on the worst of the year. It's not amazing, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty fun. So, all right. Maybe I'll do this like every once in a while. I won't do this like every couple films or anything, because just going back and forth, I mean, it's a little. Maybe I should have planned this whole slideshow thing better, but yeah. Another one is Reality, which is on HBO Max. Just a really, I also talked about this one earlier in the year, but the main reason to watch this one is Sydney Sweeney's performance. I think she's just really, really great as this kind of like paranoid whistleblower, and it's it is a little bit stagey, but I think for the most part the dramatic elements work really well, and I'd be really excited to see what this director does next, because it's a cool debut. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be on a lot of people's best of the year list, but definitely have to throw in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I didn't love it as much as other people did. It definitely got a little bit bogged down in exposition and stuff like that for me, but at the same time, I did think it was pretty. I did think it was, it worked pretty well for the most part. And just the animation and like I've never really seen anything like it in terms of where these guys are taking modern animation. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching part 2 whenever that comes out. Another kind of streaming thriller I thought was cool was No One Will Save You, which is on Hulu. Just an interesting kind of little like Signs or A Quiet Place kind of alien story. I think the premise like limits the film a little bit, just with there being pretty much no dialogue, but at the same time, I thought it was really kind of well directed, and the suspense sequences worked pretty well for what it was. Passages, I talked about this one as well. Just a really good drama between with one of the best performances of the year by Franz Rogowski. Yeah, I won't say too much more. I did review this, but yeah, it's on Mubi. That's a really good kind of independent film. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Talked about this earlier in the year. James Gunn, I think, is the best director that's really kind of ever worked with the MCU, or at least the best. I shouldn't say that, because like Sam Raimi and stuff, but like in terms of the directors who kind of are very well known for their MCU work and have kind of built a lot of the studio, I think he's definitely the best one, and his Guardians of the movies are great, and the third one is no exception. I thought it was a really fun time, despite kind of the length and some of the tonal issues it had, but it was a good time. Mission Impossible 7, I guess, or 7.5, whatever we're at now, but Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yeah, I'm not as in love with the Mission Impossible movies or the Tom Cruise like suicidal tourism project as some people are, but I mean, you can't really deny how fun these are. I mean, just the stunts that they do in these are fantastic, and the motorcycle one in this alone is worth seeing the movie for. So definitely check it out if you haven't. Okay, I'm excited to talk about this one because I haven't talked about it on my channel yet. Dick's the Musical, from the director of Borat, Larry Charles, I think his name is. So this is the first musical from A24, and it's very much a queer cinema thing, and it is. I saw the trailer and I wasn't fully sold on it. I thought the humor came off as a little bit too easy and annoying. I can confirm after having seen the movie that it's not really the case. It has a lot more layers to it, and it reminds me a lot of watching like John Waters movies, like the really strange, like off kilter choices in dialogue that characters have. There's somebody in the film who's basically playing like Edie the Egg Lady from like Pink Flamingos, and so and there's these guys down here on the poster they're called the Sewer Boys. It's got a lot of really strange choices to it, and the songs are kind of catchy even if it's not directed that well, like the actual musical sequences and stuff. But um, I don't know, it was really weird. I enjoyed it a lot. I appreciated seeing a musical that was just so confident, you know, being itself, being what it is, and I think this is pretty underrated. I wish more people would see it, honestly. Then we got Plane, which is which was like a really good kind of January. We always get one of these like kind of direct to video looking actioners that just shows up in the theaters. And yeah, Plane was a very simple premise. But once you get to the island and you start, get into the thick of this kind of, terrorists are on this island and they need to get off for safety kind of plot to it. I thought it worked really well. Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter, really physical action performances. Yeah, it's just kind of hard not to have fun with this one, really. Then we have Sick, directed by John Hyams. This is the same director as like a lot of the Universal Soldier, or at least the Universal Soldier direct-to-video films, like Day of Reckoning and stuff like that. This is basically a really simple slasher that came out early in the year. It's very much like kind of a riff on Scream. The opening set piece is pretty much the exact, it's like a modern like text version of the opening set piece in the first Scream. And then it kind of has the same like closing like house party set piece of Scream a little bit. And yeah, it's just really simple, stripped down. I mean, you're not going to get a ton out of the character stuff in it, but if you just want a good slasher, like a really simple, well-directed slasher, I liked it a lot. Then we have one I don't think I've talked about on the channel yet, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Yeah, caught up with this a few months ago, and I was not really interested in seeing it in theaters. I thought it just kind of looked like your prestigious kind of, rah military Afghanistan movie, and that's not what it is. I mean, this movie is pretty cynical about like kind of the U.S.'s presence in Afghanistan, and it really like identifies with the not only the soldiers but also this character who plays this guy here plays an interpreter who really helps out the American military presence there, but is kind of left behind to an extent after I don't know if it's the U.S.'s withdrawal, but certainly like this character played by Jake Gyllenhaal, like his withdrawal from Afghanistan, and kind of a lot of the drama of the film is getting him out and getting him a visa to the U.S. And yeah, it's in that way it's a really good drama. And then Guy Ritchie really owns the action war set pieces. So yeah, if you missed this, I'd highly suggest checking it out. It's really good. I also want to highlight this British drama I saw called Scrapper, which is about this little girl who basically her mother recently passed away, and her dad, who she hasn't really known in her life, comes back. And it's just kind of about their relationship and connecting and addressing the elephant in the room that he kind of hasn't been there for a lot of her life and everything. And yeah, it's just a really charming, sweet kind of indie drama. don't have too much to say about it, but I really enjoyed it, and I think most people would. I'm a little sad to be putting this film as just an honorable mention because I was really hoping this would be like one of my absolute favorite films of the year. I did really like it, but The Boy and the Heron by Hayao Miyazaki. It's his first film, I think, in 10 years or something. No, maybe not quite that long. Maybe 7 years, something like that. And it's it is my only issue really with it was really that it's it's very Miyazaki and that it's I don't know how much he was adding to his really impressive canon. A lot of it does feel like Spirited Away or My Neighbor Totoro, just other movies he's made. But just in terms of it's probably the most along with Spider-Verse, it's the most like beautiful animated movie I've seen this year. It's just very hard to deny how creative and gorgeous his world is, and it's always fun to just see all the little guys, like you can kind of see in the poster here, these little these little like bubble creatures and things like that he puts throughout the film, and it does feel like kind of a appropriate ending for his career if this is his last film. It's has a lot of his same ideas about war and stuff like that, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. So I will stop sharing for a second. I just want to go to see some comments. So let's see. Got quite a few to get through, so awesome. Brady says, I converted Leon. I can convert anyone. Yeah, I mean, I'm really open to liking wrestling. Like it's not like I don't like it. It's just I just haven't really, watched much of it and stuff. So No Hard Feelings is silly enough where even if I didn't find it funny, I don't think I can ever see myself disliking it that much. Yeah, exactly. That's why it would confuse me, like for somebody, why somebody would put it on their worst of the year list or something like that. It's just like I don't know, just it's just hard to deny that it can be like popcorn fun for some people, kind of like that, even if you don't take to it, for sure. No Hard Feelings is on my want to watch. Yep. No, I'd suggest it. I mean, I know not everybody loves it, and I didn't love it either, but I did think it was pretty fun. Josh says, hey, Jackson. Hey, Josh, how's it going? Hope you're doing well, man. Passages is amazing. Yeah, I actually, I think I mentioned this in my review. I got to see Passages on a 35 millimeter print as well. Like, I think because it's a British movie or something. There was a cinema in London that was playing it, and yeah, it looked great on a print. It's a gorgeous movie, and I think I need to watch it again to maybe appreciate some of the dramatic elements that I may have struggled with it, but I still really liked it. Guardians 3, love that. Not as funny as the other two. Quite sad, actually, but what a movie. Yeah, that was really my only thing with it, and I didn't even have a problem with it being sad, but it was kind of trying to be both like a really serious, sad movie about animals and also a funny Guardians movie, but and it didn't quite mix those perfectly, but it was still like, I still had a really good time with it for sure. I did see your review, Josh. I know you hated it. I don't know. I don't know. I think you have to get on the wavelength of its humor, and I definitely did. I think if you're a big John Waters fan like I am, I think you'll probably find something funny about it for sure. But if you don't, you might hate it. My dad thinks Plane is one of the worst movies he's ever seen. Wow. I said he doesn't have good taste. I mean, I don't want to say your dad has bad taste, but Plane is, solid action movie. It's very January. It's very, very derivative, but like, if you can ignore that, and just kind of like, turn your brain off for 90 minutes, it's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I was waiting for the classic Winslow wave. How's it going, man? Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Plane, quite enjoyable. Really enjoyed it. Yeah. No, I don't hear a lot of dislike for Plane. A lot of mediocre opinions for sure, but I don't hear a lot of people like hating Plane kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. Just come back from Anyone But You. Oh, is that the new rom-com with like, what's his name? The guy from like Hitman and Top Gun Maverick and stuff. I think I know what it is. And Sydney Sweeney's in it too. Yeah. Yeah, let me know how that is. The Covenant, another on my watch list. Yeah, it was on my watch list for. It was on my radar for a bit, and it took me a while to get around to it. But I would definitely recommend it. It's like smarter than I thought it would be, and as well. I mean, I expected Guy Ritchie to do the action war set pieces really well, and they're really tense. He does it really well. The DP of Scrapper also just made her debut feature, How to Have Sex. That was good. Oh, I remember reading that there was a connection, I think, between them. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't gotten around to that yet, but everyone I follow has been saying really good things as far as people that have seen it. So definitely have to check that out. Winslow says, I haven't seen any Miyazaki yet, so have held back on seeing Boy and the Heron. Yeah, no, that's I almost say you could just go into. I mean, you could probably just go into it, and you might even get more out of it. Just because, again, I think my big issue with it was that it just felt a little too derivative of other Miyazaki films. Like it's again like the family drama of it, and kind of like the locate, the fact that they just moved to a new place. That's very Totoro. A lot of the visuals like directly reference Spirited Away in a way that I thought was a little too on the nose. But so yeah, maybe if you haven't seen it, like don't let that put you off. It's totally its own thing. But I don't think it's maybe his strongest work. So maybe if you want to get like a feel for, my favorite's Princess Mononoke. So I'd recommend that. I cried like a fucking baby through the entire last 30 minutes of Guardians 3. That's fair, man. That is very fair. I'm a big animal person as well. My fiance trains dogs, so I definitely kind of have to be. Glenn Powell, yeah, that's the name of the guy from Anyone But You. Yeah, he's a really good actor, actually. Yeah. And Guardians 3 is predicted to win the Oscar for Best Visual Effects, as Oppenheimer didn't make the shortlist. What? I didn't know that, but I don't know. I like the visual effects in Guardians 3. I mean, like, because it's James Gunn, there's more like personality to them than in most Marvel movies. But I don't like the idea of any Marvel movie winning Best Special Effects, especially with a movie like Oppenheimer that's like all practical and yeah, or something like you mentioned, like The Creator, like where they really kind of merge CG and kind of other effects, practical effects really well. Even though I haven't seen The Creator, I have seen a lot of stills from it though. All right, I'm gonna go back to the slides. All right. Next one. I know this one has a niche audience. I know that this is like, so the world's reaction to this was, why are they making another one? But I love the first Aquaman. It is just one of my favorite superhero movies in general. I think it's one of the only modern ones made in like the cinematic universe era that A, like doesn't care at all about cinematic universes, and B, is just so like committed to its own silliness. And if you like that, you will probably, if you like the first one, you will also probably like the second one. It's really silly and really like committed to its silliness. And I loved that about it. I thought it was a lot of fun, just really pulpy, like it's essentially like, just this kind of like an older style of superhero movies that's not as concerned with cinematic universes and all that, but it's also really weird. It's just there's a reference to like Lord of the Rings and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in it. Like there's all this weird like James Wan stuff in it. It was, for me, it wasn't quite as good as the first one. It just even though it's shorter than the first one, like there's more pacing issues than I remember being the case. But I don't know. I kind of don't get the hate for this. So this is like getting really trashed, like both at the box office and with like critics and audience members. I don't get it. I think it's a lot of fun, and people should just kind of like, I don't know, go into this with a more open mind or something. I think it was fun. Then I I also want to talk about Master Gardener, which I missed earlier in the year. It's a new film by Paul Schrader, whose films first performed in Card Counter I actually haven't seen yet. I need to get on this trilogy a bit more. But this movie has an insane premise that kind of reveals itself over the course of the film. I will not spoil what this is, but I will just say that the character played by Joel Edgerton like has a really dark past, and he's kind of it's kind of a redemption story for him, which feels really weird to say given how evil the character was at one point. And the romance is also really strange, but at the same time the film has this, I don't know, it's so kind of sincere in what it's doing, and Paul Schrader is so good at this kind of character, this like lonely, like kind of mournful character, that I think the drama actually works pretty well. It's shot really beautifully, as you know, a lot of Schrader's films are, and yet it's not like I've seen some of his kind of lesser films like Dog Eat Dog and stuff. It's much better than stuff like that. So I almost gave this the 4-star. I think the premise was a little too insane for me to give it that on the first watch, but on revisiting it, I might have to, like, it was really solid. I think I'll be coming back to it for sure. So I also definitely want to give a shout out to Rye Lane. Probably the best like straight up rom-com I saw this year. Like really, really visually inventive. Kind of shot like an Edgar Wright film. Like you have a lot of like wide angle lenses and kind of rapid kinetic editing to it. And it's just really funny. I did talk about this in a video earlier in the year, but yeah, if you just want to watch a really funny, short, charming rom-com with a lot of cool British humor, definitely give this a watch. It was a lot of fun. I know I wasn't. Most people weren't as huge on this one as I am, but yeah, Inside with Willem Dafoe, still one of my favorite performances of the year. It's kind of directed in the style of like an Abel Ferrara late period art movie about this thief who gets stuck in this apartment and is kind of like just forced to, you know, be in this very still environment, looking at the world outside moving around him when he can't get out. And he's also surrounded by a bunch of art, which is what he's trying to steal. And he's kind of reflecting on the art a little bit. And kind of the lean, like logistical survival elements of it, I think still work pretty well. Like just like, you know, him trying to get water and food and stuff is you know, interesting for a survival movie. It's always interesting to watch stuff like that. So, you know, I could see people being a bit lower on this than I was, but yeah, I thought it was really good, and Defoe just really commits to it, and I think he's really good in the film. Speaking of really good performances, Sanctuary, directed by Zachary Wigan, I think his name is. And so yeah, the performance I'm referencing here is Margaret Qualley, who I'm just starting to like more and more as an actress. I can't wait to see Driveway Dolls, Ethan Coen's new movie. But yeah, no, this is just about a guy who's about to take over a new company, and he hires a dominatrix to kind of psychologically dominate him a little bit and kind of like get him in the mindset for his new company. And this one location kind of chamber thriller like slowly reveals more perverse kind of angles to this plot as the film goes on. And it's really tense. It's really funny. It's very like sensual. I thought as just a solid, witty, erotic thriller, it was really good. And the ending is very fitting for for what it builds to its ending very appropriately, if a little bit cleanly. So yeah, I think more people should be talking about this performance. I just think she's such a great actress, and I cannot wait to see more stuff that she's in. So maybe this wasn't my favorite movie of the year. I did really like it, but it's certainly the movie of the year, I think, and that's Barbie. I don't know if this is the highest grossing movie of the year, but it's got to be up there or at least close to it. I thought just so funny. I went and saw this in theaters twice. I just thought it was such a like clever, like it's, I don't know, just the to take something which could be such an easy like marketing cash grab, and then just like A, not totally ruin that, and B, like subvert it and be something more that has higher ideas on its mind. and is also really funny about it. I just thought was great. It's not my favorite Greta Gerwig movie or anything, but it's like other movies she's made definitely have like more in-depth ideas, I would say. But this is still like, really, it's got a lot more in its mind than most blockbusters, I'll say. And Ryan Gosling is so funny in it. I mean, Margot Robbie and the entire cast really, but Ryan Gosling just steals the show. I hope he gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor, because that especially that musical sequence with all the Kens is just so funny. Infinity Pool by Brandon Cronenberg. Definitely my favorite movie in the recent genre of like rich people vacation satires. The only one that I really think is kind of like psychologically engaged and really is willing to get into the headspace of its protagonist enough to that way when it makes fun of them, it actually resonates. Because this is a really cruel premise of what ends up happening to Alexander Skarsgård's character, but because the film kind of sympathizes with him to a small extent, you do end up like really kind of getting involved with what's going on, and it's really twisted. And Mia Goth is really great as one of those sadistic people that ends up kind of tormenting him. And it maybe isn't on the level of a lot of people's criticisms of this, or just like, you're not David Cronenberg. But I think Brandon is, he is developing what's becoming his own aesthetic with this and Possessor and other stuff. So, I thought this was maybe going to make my top 10 at one point. It's pretty close to it. It's just not quite there, but I liked it a lot. Very recent catch up for me. I didn't think I was going to see this before I made my list, but Poor Things by Yorgos Lanthimos. So I've only seen one other Lanthimos film. I've seen The Lobster, and I really, really like the first half of The Lobster. I think the whole dry, witty satire that they're doing is really, really funny and interesting. It just kind of lost me in the second half, and I'm honestly not huge on the film overall. I might need to revisit it though. Maybe I'll get more out of it the second time. But so I'm underseen with the director, but I thought Poor Things was great. I think it feels weird for such an arty director like him to do such a trashy premise. I mean, I don't know how many other people have mentioned this, but this is basically Frankenhooker, like the Frank Henenlotter film. It's not exactly the same, but definitely it ends up like it starts and ends in that direction pretty much. All the performances are great, especially Emma Stone. I was kind of blown away with how well she portrays this very, very particular character that I'm not sure if that kind of character has ever been portrayed on screen. And the way this is shot, it's gorgeous. Has Yorgos's like kind of dry dialogue where everybody says like pretty much just what's on their mind sort of thing. And it's it's again like a lot of it definitely sympathy with the character is key, and with something as wild as this, you do still sympathize with her situation and care about what's going on as things progress. So I enjoyed this a lot. Another one that probably could have made the list. There were just some other ones I liked a little bit more. Speaking of Josh, who was commenting and stuff. So this is his favorite film of the year. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive. But Past Lives by Celine Song. This is an excellent drama about these two characters who were friends when they were kids, and then she moves away, and all these years later they reunite and kind of address thoughts of what could have been, even though they've kind of both moved on with their lives a little bit. And I thought it was just a really mature look at the subject, and the way it concludes is very I think it kind of hints that it could go in an easier direction than it does, and then just the way it concludes I think is perfect and just really, really heartfelt. And I've had a lot of conversations. I think if you're in a relationship, watch this with your partner. I think it'll bring up a lot of, you know, productive. I think it'll be a productive conversation that I think could bring a lot of value to like the way you see your partner and see like yourselves and how you've kind of progressed as people. I think it's really good. Yeah, another horror film, Skinamarink. Another controversial one that I know not everyone liked as much as I do, but just in terms of like really lo-fi, like kind of quasi found footage movies, this is one of the best ones that I've seen. Just it really reminded me of what it was like when I was a kid and I was scared of the dark in my room, and just all these wild thoughts that were in my head about what could be lurking in my house, sort of thing. And it just has this like nightmare logic to it that few horror films do for me, and it's so impressive for the budget. I think this cost like $15,000, and so yeah, I'm excited to see whatever Kyle Edward Ball does next after this. But yeah, Skinamarink. Another film that I was really close to putting this on the list actually, but I caught up with it late, and I just wanted to give a shout out to some other stuff more. But Godzilla -1. I think this is my second favorite Godzilla film after the 1954 original, and I haven't seen that many, but this was really, really good. So yeah, I mentioned in my review, but it's kind of like just like I think I remember saying like it's like a Godzilla movie was just like an Ozu film. I mean, it's just like a character drama, pretty much. That's the heart of it. It's about this guy who is he was a former kamikaze pilot, and he's kind of regretful that he retreated from his sacrifice. And then he sees kind of and Godzilla kind of represents a huge source of that drama, and it's kind of a second chance for him to sort of redeem himself. But of course, the film isn't necessarily rooting for him to, be a kamikaze pilot. And I think it wraps things up really well and has a much better arc for him than just like military suicide is the answer kind of thing. But it's the drama of it is great. And just the Godzilla sequences themselves are so good. I'm kind of blown away that this only costs like, I think it was like $20 million. I might have to look it up. It might be more than that. But it was an insanely low amount of money for how good this thing looks. And yeah, Godzilla is incredibly intimidating in it. The disaster sequences are so like blunt force, and it's so good. I totally understand why a lot of people have this as like in their top 5 films. Again, there's just other stuff I wanted to shout out more than this, but this is absolutely fantastic. Check it out if you haven't. Last couple films here, just before we get to the top 10. This one is Pacifiction, directed by Albert Serra. Again, a hard one to recommend. Kind of, it's 2.5 hours long. It's extremely slow. It's definitely in like the slow cinema kind of movement, and it's about kind of dry subjects. It's about like remnants of colonialism in I think Tahiti. It's like French Polynesia kind of, and this guy. Who is like who lives on the island and is this very important kind of political figure there. He's very like paranoid about these conspiracies by the French government, and kind of the consequences it might have for him, for the locals. And it involves a military submarine, which you see a little bit of, but it's really, a lot of the film is like this guy concerned that there's always a military submarine like watching him, sort of thing. Again, it's like the plot, it's not a movie where like, it's like Miami Vice. It's like the plot is not the reason to watch this. It's definitely the filmmaking itself. And I think just the vibes that this puts off, they're so dreamy. It's so, the entire thing, even though a lot of it's pretty quiet, it's just like you get vibes of like being in a club all the time. It's just very confusing, and in a good way, and kind of yeah, I don't know, just dreamy is the word I think of when I think of this film. Um, so yeah, I think I thought of like movies like Miami Vice. I thought a little bit of like Claire Denis films, especially like her recent stuff like Stars at Noon. Um, yeah, if any of that sounds interesting to you, check it out. If not, I would avoid it because it is definitely not for everybody. And this is I think a couple people have said it on Letterboxd, but like this is if this filmmaker will never make like a commercial movie. That's gonna like this is his most like commercial movie. It's like everything else he's done is like an art installation, and so this has a lot of like vibes about similar to that. But if you can get on that wavelength, I think you can get something out of this for sure. And then the last one, I didn't expect this to put this as close to my top 10 as I ended up doing, but I did rewatch this in the middle of the year, Asteroid City by Wes Anderson. And on rewatch, I liked it a lot more than I did the first time. I thought it was just this really kind of beautiful expression of this filmmaker, like kind of wrestling with like the fact that he is a storyteller and how much is storytelling really kind of providing him with solace at this point, like how much is it really doing for him emotionally, but at the same time it's all he knows how to do, and so he just keeps doing it, and that there's something kind of beautiful about that in a way. And the film looks gorgeous. It was also kind of cool to see Wes do something a little bit more like science fiction, like has this whole element with this alien. It's a really beautiful kind of like stop motion scene to it. So yeah, I understand why this is harder to connect to for some people, and why some people are a little bit alienated by Wes's kind of late period style. But I think if you revisit it, you might get more out of it the second time. Because I definitely did. So. But yeah, so that's that's my honorable mentions. I'm just gonna get some more comments here before I get into the actual list. So just gonna. Winslow says it's a bit rubbish, but the studio rom-com, but in the studio rom-com sort of way that is totally watchable and enjoyable in moments. I could give you two big reasons to see it. Talking about No Hard Feelings. I agree with those two big reasons, Winslow. It's very important. Brady says Aquaman is genuinely one of the best movies of the 2010s. I need to rewatch it before I give it the 5 stars like you and Leon did. I've still only seen it once, but it is one of my favorite superhero movies of that decade, if not of all time. I think it's so much fun, for sure. I didn't believe in vulgar Oturist theory until I saw Aquaman. Certainly some of the best evidence for it I've seen. I'm maybe on rewatch I'll see if it fits into my like shit post cinema category. Aquaman is so corny. I love it. Me too. It's so. Let me know if you saw the second one, because I like that's what I felt about the second one, and I was like, this is so corny and so like, but it's so committed to its corniness. It's like, it's totally cool with being the butt of the joke, which in some ways is just the coolest thing ever. So, I think it's awesome. I love it. You've got to see First Reformed. It's fantastic. Yeah, I know. That's the one I'm really looking forward to. The card counter as well. I think that sounds great in the subject matter for sure. But yeah, First Reformed, definitely. I saw Inside and I almost puked when I saw that Willem Dafoe had been shitting in the bathtub. That is a detail. Yeah, because like everything in the house stops working, so like the water isn't running or anything, so he has to improvise for a lot of things, and that's a lot of the drama of the film, is like how he improvises and how he eventually tries to escape from this lockdown apartment. It's a very 2020 movie. It's interesting they came out a few years later, but I got the view of Drew saying, "Hey everyone, what's up? Hey Drew, how's it going? Hope you're doing well, man." Yeah, I got hi Drew. Says, hey. Doesn't Aquaman 2 have like a ton of piss jokes in it? It does. The gags early in the movie, like with his son and everything, like there's a lot of just like parenting jokes about like his son pissing everywhere and stuff like that, and it's very funny. Again, very like just committed to its silliness. It's corny in that way. Yeah, very good. All right, let's get into the top 10. Why don't we? So I will share my screen back once again. I'm very excited to talk about just the 10 best movies I've seen this year. So my number 10 is a film that I caught up with, in the last couple of months or so, and that is May December, directed by Todd Haynes. So Todd Haynes is a filmmaker I'm not very familiar with. I mean, I know a lot about him and his filmography, Carol, Safe, stuff like that. But this is my introduction to him, and I was just blown away. So the premise of this film is pretty notorious. It's based on a true story of a teacher who assaulted her and raped her, I think, 13-year-old student or something like that. And then spent time in prison for it. But then after she got out of prison, they got together and like just got married and like kind of moved on with normal domestic life. And the film, so the film's not about that section of it. It's, I think that would be really, really hard and a little bit tasteless to make a film about that. But it's actually about Natalie Portman's character, who's an actress, shows up to Julianne Moore, who's playing the woman. Shows up to her house and basically wants to study her and study this, like research her situation because she's going to play her in a movie. And what I love about it is that some people have been calling this camp. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it's like has the tone of movies that I would call campy per se, but it's certainly darkly funny because like the angle to it is that Natalie Portman, for one, just the casting of Natalie Portman is, as this kind of pretentious actress who like does very well researched roles and is interested kind of in very minute particular details of characters, I think is kind of telling, because I think she's kind of like that in real life from what I've heard. And so it's just really interesting, that casting. But she plays it so well, and there's so many like really darkly funny details of like how much she's obsessed and wants to like basically all of these like dark thoughts that she like she's such a fucked up character, and she's doing all these really fucked up things in the name of, oh, it's just acting, like I'm method acting here. And so it's in that way it's the same kind of humor as like Tropic Thunder, if that makes any sense. But the style of it is very Persona. It's very like, Ingmar Bergman sort of like getting it like this person and this other person merging and kind of becoming the same person. And so those two tonal things are really difficult to balance. But I think Todd Haynes does it well. And I think the other thing that really it has going for it is Charles Melton, who plays the Julianne Moore's husband and the victim of this crime, is so good in the film, and he really is the heart of it. Despite all of the off-kilter humor, the film clearly has so much sympathy for this character who has he's had his life stolen in a lot of ways, and Charles Melton brings that out so well in his performance. There's so many great lines of dialogue that are just so haunting about that. And the film has a very like Sunset Boulevard kind of ending that really ties into the way that Natalie Portman's like acting research has really been only further harming the situation and kind of and everything like that, and also kind of exploiting him. So it's just a fascinating movie that I've been thinking about more and more, and I hope more people. I mean, it's very easy to check out. It's on Netflix now, so if you haven't checked it out, I would definitely suggest doing so. So yeah, number 10. We're just going to take a drink here real quick. My number 9 is my favorite comedy of the year, I would say, and that is Bottoms. So directed by M.F. Seligman, who also did Shiva Baby. Shiva Baby. This was... So it's about two girls who start a fight club, basically, like female fight club. And this again, I said this in my initial review. It's hard to like say everything about this movie that works. It's just so funny. It's it has just like this really surreal tone to it in the way that like, I don't know, like Airplane or, you know, Wet Hot American Summer and like all these older comedies tend to have. I think Emma Seligman says that she, yeah, like wanted to base it off like the tone of it off a lot of these older like studio comedies that she used to like growing up. And um, so despite the fact that there are elements to the film where it feels like it has to lean into its sweeter elements a little bit, I still think that that stuff mostly works about the film, and it never sacrifices any of the sort of like mean, like kind of Clueless or Mean Girls kind of tone that it's going for. And just everyone I think is really funny in the film. Marshawn Lynch, I couldn't believe I was really seeing him in a film and also be great in the film. But he was really funny. Rachel Selgerman and Ayo Edebiri, I think, are great. Yeah, I just think this was such a like perfect tone for like a modern like studio comedy. I thought it was so funny, and I'll definitely be revisiting it for sure, because I don't think I laughed more in a theater than I did when I watched Bottoms with my sibling and Renee. So, yep, number 9. Number 8. I wish more people had this on their list, because like M. Night Shyamalan has been, you know, like I think he's been. Some people have talked about him, you know, falling off a cliff ever since, you know, movies like The Village and after that, and I think a lot of people will like acknowledge some success that he's had with stuff like Split, but you know, even recent movies that he's done that I think are great, like Glass and Old, have been kind of getting not much respect from people. And Knock at the Cabin, though it was kind of a, you know, for a lot of people a return to form, it still got like a 2.9 on Letterboxd. So I don't know what this is about, because M. Night's just fantastic, and this is another example of him doing like this really cool high concept genre premise about like these 4 characters who meet this family at a house, telling them that they need to make a very important sacrifice to prevent the apocalypse. And it's about kind of, you know, it tackles a lot of M. Night's career interests, namely faith, in the way that he kind of tackles that in a movie like Signs. And it's just shot and directed so beautifully. Just like the kind of voyeuristic, like Hitchcockian lenses that they use for a lot of the sequences, and it's really, really tense, especially a lot of the way that some of these characters sort of sacrifice themselves in order to prove a point, or to help kind of make their case that this ultimate sacrifice needs to happen. I think that's done really well. I think the main thing that people have been criticizing about this is the ending, and I can sort of see what people are talking about, at least like preferring the novel's ending. But at the same time, I don't think M. Night's ending is bad at all. I think it's actually the ending that makes a lot more sense for him as a filmmaker, and it's a lot more kind of, you know, I don't think it's naive. I think it's just genuinely interested in how this family would move on in this scenario. It's kind of a beautiful expression of families still holding together despite really disastrous events. And that's, if you go back through his filmography, that is a clear interest of his, like with stuff like Signs, and Unbreakable, and Glass, and so many films that he's done. So yeah, I don't know why. I really hope M. Night will start getting more respect. It just seems like unlikely that it's going to happen. So, but yeah, Knock at the Cabin, a fantastic movie. My favorite horror film of the year, and my number 7 film overall, is When Evil Lurks, which is an Argentinian film directed by Damien Rubna. So this is a very straightforward, well, still very kind of unique and hyper-violent, but very straightforward possession film, and probably one of the better possession films I've seen in the modern era. So yeah, I mean, part of it is this group of men are kind of investigating this series of strange like maladies and illnesses that are popping up in this area, and it kind of leads them into darker and darker discoveries about what's this phenomenon that's happening. And I don't want to spoil too much beyond that because it's very interesting to see where this progresses. But this is just like a lot of people have pointed it out, but it's just like one of the meanest horror films you'll see in recent years. It's just, it has such a kind of like dark, apocalyptic, like nihilistic attitude towards its characters. But and you still care about them, but it's just so like fatalistic and sad to just kind of watch what happens to them. There's a lot of like just very cruel details in the film, like a scene that happens where this dog, like, you know, picks up this kid and basically shakes it around like a rag doll kind of thing. And there's all these brutal set pieces, especially building towards the climax of the film. And I do want to give a shout out to how I think the possession genre is just one of the most tired out there. I mean, like Blumhouse puts one out like every year or two kind of thing. And really none of them have like compared to films like Possession or The Exorcist. It's so rare for like a really great one to come out. And this one it was just like such a unique take on it. And just so kind of simple and well done. And I never thought, I didn't think I would see a film like do a possession film well and also just be incredibly simple at the same time. This is on Shudder, and so if you haven't seen it, I would highly suggest checking it out. There has been a little bit of a controversy about the film in its portrayal of one autistic character. I did not get any kind of like, you know, negative or sort of condescending or like thoughtless vibes to it when I watched it. I think the film is very easy to, you know, get on with and read beyond that level. So I did want to address that criticism, but it certainly didn't cross my mind when I watched it. So just a really solid, lean, mean horror film. When Evil Lurks, my favorite horror film of the year. I'll do a couple more here, and then I'll get to some comments before we get into the top 5. So my number 6 is David Fincher's The Killer, which I don't know if I've talked about on the channel yet, because this was one of the films I saw at the London Film Festival this year. So I got to see it a little bit before it came out in November. And I could sense when I saw this in the theater that some people would just immediately dismiss this as like lesser Fincher, because it's very, like on a plot level, it's kind of it's not doing a lot new. It's very much familiar territory for him in terms of like, you know, crime pulp. But and it's you know, it's also very similar to something like La Samurai or, you know, films about misanthropic assassins, right? But it has, for me, it had this really interesting and kind of refreshing self-reflexive tone for Fincher, because it's very funny. I especially the second time I watched it on Netflix, I laughed so much just watching this character's like, you know, like his narration is so like kind of Sigma Grindset, like execution is everything, like stick to the plan. It's very precise. And then when you juxtapose that with what he actually does and kind of how bad he is at his job sometimes, it's just endlessly funny. And also just the fact that he's always like using like Amazon delivery for his killing devices, and he's eating McDonald's and drinking like Captain Morgan, like all this stuff. It's just the amount of details that are thrown into this of just like the contradictions of this character is just endlessly funny to watch. And it's also kind of a commentary on Fincher himself. I mean, this guy who, as a director, he's known for doing a lot of takes, and he's very like, you know, he's always trying to remain in control over his projects, which is very much how this Killer wants to be over his work. And so I think you do get a lot of like, you know, self-reflexive kind of humor in that way as well. And the thriller stuff, generally, you know, it's still got Fincher's craft. It's still very tense watching a lot of these sequences, especially the one where I think it's in Florida or something. He ends up invading this guy's house, and there's this big like violent fight sequence there. So and the ending as well. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but this character kind of ends up realizing a lot of his limitations and flaws, and it's just a really cool way of. I don't know. I don't totally get why people are seeing it as lesser Fincher, because I think it's very much like it's a genre exercise, but I think he is getting to a lot of new territory just in terms of like the tone and the comedy and all that. It's a solid like middle of the road Fincher film for me, which means it's going to be very high on this list because Fincher's great. So stop sharing for a second and gets to some more comments. So yeah, let's see. I'm pretty sure he directed Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story. Sorry, who is that we're talking about? I don't remember. I don't know. What's your vintage? What do you mean? I don't know what you mean. I really thought Bottoms was terrible. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've talked to some people who thought the same thing. Mike from Did You See That I know also didn't like it. A few other people. I mean, if you don't get on board with the comedy, like you're not gonna like it. Like it doesn't have a lot to offer beyond that. Like clearly, like even from my explanation, it's like I liked it because I thought it was really funny. And if you don't think it's really funny, there's probably not much beyond that. Yep. Airplane 2 is better than Airplane. Wow. Airplane 2 has more boobs. I mean, that's certainly. I actually haven't seen Airplane 2. I need to get on that because I've wanted to watch it for years. Oh, there we go. Hey, this could be soda. No, it's wine. No, don't. I just didn't know what you meant. I totally get with the joke. That was awesome. And then you also said The Killer. I've been meaning to watch this. Yeah. It's again like it's Netflix, I think. Yeah, it kind of sucks that like Fincher movies aren't getting hugely wide releases anymore. Like The Killer's release was really small. Like that's part of why I made a point of seeing it at the London Film Festival, because I was like, I know that this, I don't know what its release is actually going to look like, and I don't know how easily I'll be able to go see it. So, and I wanted to see it in a theatrical setting because it's Fincher. But yeah, like Mank too. Mank also came out just on Netflix pretty much. So unfortunate. All right, well, let's get into the top 5 then. And yeah, thank you guys so much for sticking with me on this list, because I know it's been long, especially with the honorable mentions and all that. But yeah. So number 5 is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. So this is Martin Scorsese pretty much only makes super long movies now. This is another, just like I think this is about the length of The Irishman, 3.5 hours roughly. And despite the length, because I saw this in theaters, I never really felt it. It's such a well-paced, like interesting, but still kind of meditative, slow epic. I think. I mean, if you just look up a little bit about the real case that it's based on, or have read the book, which I've heard is great, it is a tragic, like, well, not even tragic. It's just this really evil, orchestrated event where the Osage Nation, they were given this really, rugged looking piece of land that nobody thought was worth anything, and lo and behold, they discovered oil on it, and they, through that became some of the wealthiest people in the U.S. And of course, the white, the white settlers couldn't let that stand, and so a group of them, led by Robert De Niro's character, just orchestrate this long con of a plot to murder all of them and to kind of drive them out. And I know I'm aware that this makes quite a few changes, or at least a few like kind of narrative structural changes from the novel. I haven't read the novel, so I can't really compare it in that way. Although I am kind of aware of what those changes are, but I will say I think that the way that they structure this, from where they kind of set it up as like this mix of like a crime procedural, but also like kind of this Hollywood melodrama, where a lot of the first act is about like Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who's like the nephew of Robert De Niro, like falling in love with Lily Gladstone's Molly, who is this Osage princess is the wrong word, but like very like well respected kind of figure, and like a lot of the drama of the film is how could someone who is married to her betray her in the way that he does and slowly help like poison her basically. And you at once you can understand how it happens logistically, but you also can't believe what you're seeing a lot of the time. And it's shot gorgeously. It's edited immaculately by Thelma Schoonmaker, who I think has been Scorsese's editor basically since Taxi Driver, like a really long time. And I think what's really stuck with me about it though is the ending, because I kept wondering throughout, like, okay, this is so grand, so epic, so well done, but how is he going to end this? And he ends up like really reflecting on kind of his own role in a story like this, where, you know, at the end of the day, like he may have sympathy for what happened to the Osage, but he is this like white, Americana classic filmmaker. Like this isn't necessarily one. It's not really his story to tell per se. That doesn't mean he can't tell it, but his power is kind of limited. And at the end of the day, this is kind of a true crime story. And the film kind of the ending of the film gets into a lot of the like troubling questions about true crime and like kind of sensationalized media in general, and how much can it actually do to help the victims. But at the same time, the ending totally gives the power back to the Osage Nation to tell their story of this. So yeah, I thought this was just fantastic. This is the rest of these films on this list are 5 stars for me, and this was one of them. And for there to be 5-star films in one year speaks a lot about the year for me, because I don't normally give that many out. But yeah, Marty, he's making great films still at like 80 years old. My next one is How to Blow Up a Pipeline, directed by Daniel Goldhaber. I reviewed this early on in the year. I talked extensively about it, so maybe I'll say a little bit less about it here than I will about some of the other films. Although I have reviewed most of them except for one, I think, that are coming up. But this is essentially like the anarchist cookbook, like eco-terrorist kind of version of a really like a ticking clock thriller. And it's basically these characters who come from very different backgrounds in the United States are all affected by climate change and kind of environmental disasters more generally, in different ways. And like for example, one of them has been poisoned and has known people that have died of cancer because they live near this oil refinery. Another one has had his financial livelihood kind of ruined by an oil company. So all these people team together and just kind of, decide that they can't take it anymore and they need to take action. And so the film is this very logistical sort of plot to do exactly what it says on the poster, to blow up an oil pipeline. And I think what's impressive about it is that the film has kind of this I don't think it's saying that it's, I talked about this extensively. I don't think it's saying that these people are doing the right thing necessarily. I think what it's saying is that it takes this kind of like neutral perspective to not judge or put these people on a pedestal, but kind of show how this anxiety is leading towards, like people will act at some point. Like if we don't do something about climate change through policy, people will get desperate. And the film really kind of gets you into the headspace of that anxiety through its filmmaking elements. It's shot on 16 millimeter, looks like a lot of gorgeous 70s thrillers. It's got this really like synthy, like One of Tricks Point Never kind of style of soundtrack that's playing throughout. The editing is really, really tense in the way it transitions between certain scenes of the heist as well as like background elements of these characters. Just phenomenal filmmaking altogether. And I can't recommend this enough. I think it's on Hulu in the States, so maybe Disney Plus outside of the US. So this was probably one of the more underseen films in my top 10. So definitely give this a watch. I absolutely loved it. My number 3 is John Wick Chapter 3. Or Chapter 4. I think I was trying to be too perfect with the whole number theme there. But yeah, John Wick Chapter 4. Quick drink for a second. Voice a little bit. But yeah, so I've loved all of the John Wick movies. Weirdly, I think I like the first one the least. I mean, even though it's a great story about this guy who just, he was wronged and he's getting revenge on people who took his dog and all that. But I think that they've really expanded the story to more interesting areas in chapters 2 and 3. And then 4, they just make this full on, like, I mean, he has like the same opening as like Lawrence of Arabia with him like riding through the desert and all that. It is really like an action epic. The film mostly feels like 3 kind of distinct set pieces that are all really long, thoughtful, and well choreographed. And I just thought all of them, just everything about this movie clicked for me, especially the second time I watched it. It's just I don't know, just again, like the action sequences themselves, like the different stars that they bring in, from Donnie Yen to Scott Adkins. Sanada, I forget his first name, from Japan, and Bill Skarsgård. Just everybody. I thought the cast was just perfect for all of this, and there's such a like love for action cinema and action filmmaking in this. It's just feels like everybody like got together and just wanted to show off their craft for like this ode of like, let's have this action epic to like save movies in a sense. And I'm glad this did really well. I'm glad people have kind of enjoyed this as much as I did. I'm so curious to see what they're going to do next after this with the John Wick movies, because I don't know if they were originally planning on kind of wrapping things up this early. But yeah, I'm curious to see where they take it. But I mean, even if this is the last thing they ever do with it, I think it's just such a fitting ending, and kind of a really beautiful, like heart-wrenching ending for this character. Because I think Chad Stahelski said a little bit about it on in an interview, but like, where else were you going to really take this character? Like, how else could you really end things? Like, and they've done a fantastic job, and I think Stahelski's built such a name for himself over these last like 10 years with John Wick. So yeah, fantastic film. Number 3. So my number 2 is, I think this is the last film that I haven't reviewed. I saw this at the London Film Festival as well. So this has come out. I put this on the list because this has come out in a limited release theatrically in some places. It's not as wide as some of the other ones, but it's not officially a 2024 release in the US. So I did count it for this year. But this is The Zone of Interest by Jonathan Glazer, who directed Under the Skin, Sexy Beast, Birth. And this is a Holocaust film. So very dark, sensitive subject matter, of course. And it might be the best film I've ever seen on the subject. There's still some major blind spots for me, but this takes kind of a like austere, stark, like slow cinema perspective on it. It actually reminds me a lot of. I always heard that Kubrick was going to make a Holocaust movie, and that one of the reasons that he didn't end up doing it was that he had real difficulties with the subject matter in terms of how you approach that subject from a cinematic point of view. Like, how can you even, as a filmmaker, pretend that you're like how can you act this out? Like, how can you pretend that this is happening? It's too evil of a thing. So one way to do it would be to not focus on the actual acts of violence themselves, but to focus on like kind of the banality of evil of the people who are carrying it out. And this is a very, like, again, like a slow, stark look at the lives of a Nazi family who live right outside of a concentration camp and are like perpetuating this factory of violence. But again, you don't really see a lot of the results of the violence. It's a lot of the film is kind of like, it's almost like Jean Dielman in a lot of ways. Like, you watch people do like these house chores and just very like normal things in people's lives. And then occasionally you'll see like the smoke in the background from the camps. You'll hear gunshots and people screaming sometimes. And all of this stuff is just in the background. And this could be kind of a monotonous approach for some people, but at the same time, the film has a lot of nuances in terms of style. So there's some sequences that are almost like infrared, kind of like they're very stark and shot unnaturally. They're and the score by Mika Levy, who is just, I think, one of the best composers working right now. Like, her score, or I think their score, their pronouns, for Under the Skin is just unbelievable. Like, one of my favorite scores ever. And the score for Zone of Interest is incredible. Just so creepy and kind of evil sounding in a lot of ways. And the ending to the film as well. I mean, it has this like, there's two cuts in the film towards the end where it basically time jumps a little bit, and you see like kind of in some ways like the constant nature of evil over time and how things don't always necessarily change that much. I don't want to say too much beyond that, but there's a lot of ways that the film ties the Holocaust and the lessons from it into current times without doing so like in a very like obvious way. So this just blew me away. This is a very hard film to watch. It's I think a lot of people who have seen it have said it, but it's just the kind of film you only want to watch once for sure. But it's just a masterclass in filmmaking, and like I said, it might be the best film I've ever seen on the subject. So yeah, for sure. Zone of Interest. And number one, the best film I've seen this year. I know it's going to be a little bit of like a lot of people are putting this as their number one, but I just don't think I've seen a better film this year than Oppenheimer. And I don't know if I've put a Christopher Nolan film as my number one ever. Sorry, my throat's just really going right now. But yeah, I mean, just the way that this film just really, I think, nails everything about the character, from Cillian Murphy's performance to the way that it kind of incorporates like the whole the theme of like delayed consequences that this character kind of experienced, because the entire like structure of the film, the entire like first two acts of it are about how important this mission is to carry out, and it's about kind of getting you into that headspace, and you're really there, like you're really rooting for them to kind of carry this out and build the bomb so that they can defeat the Nazis and defeat fascism. And then you see the beautiful result of it with the Trinity sequence and how kind of spellbinding this achievement is. And then it immediately cuts from that to those trucks being actually loaded on, or sorry, those bombs being actually loaded onto trucks so that they can go out and kill real people. And the entire last act of the film, I think, is really what stuck with me about this, and how kind of haunting and tragic it is. Not even just for Cillian Murphy's character, but just for the world, just for how like subtly disastrous this was to do. So sorry guys, this I don't know what's wrong with my throat today. Maybe it's just because maybe I was kind of jet lagged because I just got back. But sorry to be doing this on a live stream. That feels better. But just everyone in the cast, like Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt is fantastic. Robert Downey Jr. as Strauss, I think, is just so good in terms of the way that they kind of use him as. It's very much in the same way that they use the F. Murray Abraham character in Amadeus to like kind of create this rivalry between him and Oppenheimer. I think it's so well done, and his like trial courtroom sequences are so great. And this just has, I think, the best ending to any film I've seen this year. Just the what you end up seeing, kind of in Oppenheimer's eyes, like that sort of end of the world sequence that he sees. And I just can't believe that this film made as much money as it did. It's so unconventional for Nolan. It's so uncommercial of a premise now, where like kind of big historical films have a hard time doing so well at the box office, and this made like $900 million basically. And a lot of the film is just people in courtrooms talking, and a lot of it's shot in black and white. A lot of it looks like The Passion of Joan of Arc, where it's just like focused black and white shots of this guy's haunted, tormented face. Like, I don't know. I don't know how he pulled it off, but it's just the most impressive thing I've seen this year in film. I'll be loving this for years, and I've seen it 3 times in theaters, and it's a long movie. It's almost it's over 3 hours, I believe. And I can't wait to watch it again. I think it's just fantastic. So that's my list. I definitely want to get into some more comments before I leave the stream. Let's see. So getting a few more comments here. Line Down Under says, "You're so awesome at this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm just kind of rambling here. Like I don't have a lot of notes for this or anything." You should get guests next time. Not that you need them, but just giving you a break from talking. I normally do have guests on streams, but I figured that, and actually I feel like I should have invited Brady, because he was curious about coming on, and I just said like that, like normally I do this particular video, like the end of the year video solo. So that's why, but I normally love having guests, and it definitely gives me a break from talking. Yeah, definitely. John Wick 2 was awesome. I think you mean 4. Or no, wait, no, you do mean 2. Love the humor. John Wick 3 turned me off. It was too much like the first one. So I didn't watch John Wick 4. Okay. Honestly, like if you didn't like 3, because I liked 3 a lot, but I kind of felt like I was like, it didn't feel like the first one, but it felt like maybe an extension of the second one. It just felt like they didn't really have an ending in mind. Like they could have ended it in part 3, but they kind of kept going. For me, it almost felt like in a cynical way, like so that they could keep making movies. And I was like, well, I mean, I love these. Like they're so good. Like they're so well crafted. But I'm kind of okay with that. But then, like, I do want them to end it. So if that's your concern, watch 4, because they definitely ended. But if your concern's like it's too much like the first one, then definitely watch it, because it's not like, it's, again, the scale of it is so much grander than the first one. It's such a like action epic, whereas the first one is almost a direct-to-video action movie. Like it's so like kind of like toned down and low stakes kind of. I mean, it's big stakes for the character, but it's not like this grand like multiple city kind of epic. Honey helps the throat. I'll drink some tea with honey after this. I don't know. I think it's just because I've been talking so much, but yeah. Drew says, I absolutely love Oppenheimer. Yeah, I saw it in a couple of your videos. Yeah, you said so. Awesome, man. Yeah, no, it blew me away. And like I said, it's like a 3-hour movie that's not like it's not really a genre film. It's not like an action movie or anything like that. And I went to see it 3 times in theaters. Like it's that's not common for me. So yeah, Cillian Murphy deserves the Oscar, and he will win the Golden Globe. I don't really follow awards too much, so I hope he does though. I hope he wins. I think he'll probably. I think there's a good chance, but I don't know who else really is contending. I mean, just from seeing the movies, I kind of know, but I don't follow the buzz too much. Great list. Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious. You have posted a list down here. I'll see it in a second. Yeah, thank you as well. Playing Down Under, I really appreciate you watching. And Drew's list, Blue Beetle, Creed, Killers of the Flower Moon, Gran Turismo, Mutant Mayhem, Guardians 3, Spider-Verse, John Wick 4, Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible 7. Awesome list, man. A couple of those I haven't seen, like Blue Beetle, which I actually did hear kind of decent things about from people I knew. Gran Turismo I haven't seen, and Mutant Mayhem I really do want to check out. But I think I've seen all. No, I haven't seen Creed 3. I actually haven't seen Creed 1, but I do need to check all of those out because I've heard they're really good. Well, awesome. I think that's going to do it for the stream because, again, my voice. But thank you guys so much for watching this and sticking with me. Yeah, I hope the slideshow format was okay. I was like, I'll just do something different for this video. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, you can like the video down below and subscribe to the channel if you want. I've got more videos coming soon. Might do a worst of the year stream or video. I don't know. I will decide that soon. But regardless, I do want to have some more friends on for some streams soon and just kind of shoot the shit, talk about movies for a while. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.